I want this. Okay. Here for any app, we usually have seen the main method, right? For Flutter app, we also have the main method. So when we run the app, uh, what the Flutter framework are looking for is the main method. So in the main method, there's a function run app, and this function then start the object of my app. My app is the class that inherit from stateless widget. Later we're gonna learn about stateless widget and stateful widget, and we're gonna start to develop our own stateless widget. Okay, so basically stateless widget is the widget that is static. It doesn't have any interaction with the user. But if you still remember the first app, actually we can increment the counter, right? But that's because this stateless widget call another stateful widget. Okay, so that's why we can increment the counter. But this stateless widget, just like the uh, outer screen, the main screen, that's gonna have the widget that is stateful widget. So for any widget, we need to have the build method. This build method will return the widget that appear on the screen. And here we can see that because we develop the app in material design, we use material app widget. This title is not app bar title. It's just the title of this my app. Okay. And here we also can set the theme data by using the theme property. Okay, here, if you want to look at your code, you can go to the project, right? And then in the project, we look for the lib folder. In the lib folder, there will be main.dark, but you can also rename your dark file in other names as well. And another important file is pubspec.yml, which will manage dependencies. Like if you want to display an image on your app, then you also need to modify pubspec.yml to include the location of your image file. And there's also subfolder Android, which contain Android specific files, iOS, which contains iOS specific files. Okay, and then here, this is the Visual Studio code, right? And you can see that when you open the project, you can see Android folder, iOS folder, and this folder. And inside this folder, that's main.dart. Here we need to look at the code in main.dart. And you can observe that the first line we need to import material.dart. And the reason that we need to import material.dart because we're gonna use material app widget. And pubspec.yml, which is managing the dependencies, is right under the root project. Okay, the root folder of the project. Okay, and then here you can observe that in the build method of my app here. Here we specify that for the theme data, we're gonna use color scheme as purple. So that's why we see the app bar title in purple. And here we use material design version 3. So we set property use material 3 to be true. And at home here is the property that specify the widget that we're gonna display in our home screen at the first screen, which is my homepage. Okay, and this my homepage we pass the title Flutter demo homepage. And here you can observe that my home page is stateful widget. So that's why we can increment counter and we can see the counter value is updated because this is the stateful widget. So it can keep the state of the counter. And here for my home page, we is stateful widget in the constructor at line number 40 here. It's actually required that we need to pass title. We need to specify the title of this widget. And here we specify as Flutter demo homepage. This is the way that we create the object of my homepage, right? And when we define my homepage, we specify that there will be the parameter title. And whenever we see required, that means we need to provide it with that parameter. And here in my homepage, we have the attribute title. And here, if we create stateful widget, we need to have the create state function. And here the create state function will return the object of underscore my homepage state. You can observe that the name of this object is like has relationship with the stateful widget here. First, underscore mean private, so it's internal for only this class. And here we want to specify the state, manage the state of this class. So that's why we name it as my homepage state. And in this class, my homepage state is actually inherent from state my homepage. And here we have the counter variable, which is the variable to keep the state. Okay. And how does it work when the user increment the counter? Then here at the bottom of the app, you can see floating action button, right? And this floating action button, it has property on press when we click it. Then it's gonna call increment counter. Underscore here mean private. Okay, so this how increment counter is called when we press the floating action button. And then what happens when increment counter is called? Then here we have the set state method that we increment counter. Why do we need to have counter plus in set state? So what does set state do is that set state will tell Flutter that something has changed in this state. And when the set state tell Flutter that, then Flutter will redraw the screen, will re-render the screen. So that's why we see that the counter value is updated on the screen. If we don't have counter plus in the set state, then the screen won't be redrawn. Okay, so whenever we have some variable change, and when that variable change, we want the app to be refreshed, to be redrawn, we need to have that variable in the set state. And here in class my homepage state, we also need to have build method to display the widget. In the build method, it will return scaffold. And this scaffold is actually under the material app, right? And this scaffold widget has two main children, app bar, which display the app bar title. And how does we pass the value of the title that we specify? Here we refer it as widget.title. So what does widget.title mean? Is the title of my homepage here. Okay. So remember that when we call my homepage, we actually pass the value of title as Flutter demo homepage, right? So that's why this title will have the value as Flutter demo homepage. And then when we create the widget and the return the widget with scaffold that has add bar and display the title. That's why widget.title here has the value as Flutter demo homepage. Okay. And then in the body, you can observe that everything at the center, right? If you go to look back at the app, so you can see that this tab and the counter is at the center horizontally and vertically. And the reason that it at the center horizontally and vertically because we have the center widget here. Okay. So center widget is a layout widget that it will take a single child and position it in the middle of the parent. And in the middle here, being in the middle in horizontal direction and also in vertical direction. And the child of the center is the column. The column of two children. The first child is the text. You have pushed the button this many times. So if we look at the app, that's why the first line that we see is this first child of the column. And then the second child is the value of the counter, right? So yeah, if we look at this column, it has two children. The first child is constant text. You have pushed this button many times. And the second child is dollar sign counter. And for these two children, you can observe these two different of these two children. What are they? So why does the first child have constant, but the second child does not have constant? Does anyone want to try to answer? So for Google Meet, student, oh, okay, I thought that Google Meet want to answer. Some student want to answer. Okay. So yeah, let's continue to look at the code. So constant mean does not change, right? So here, this text is static. It won't change when we run the app, right? It's just pure text. So that's why we have constant. But why do we have the constant keyword? It will help Flutter framework to optimize the performance of the app. So whenever you have the widget that is constant, then you should have the keyword constant in front of that widget so that Flutter can run faster. But for the second time, why we cannot have the constant keyword? Because counter here can change, right? When we increment the counter, then the counter can change from like 0 to 1, 1 to 2. So it's not a constant value. We cannot place the constant keyword here. And here, if you want to display the value of the variable, then you need to have dollar sign right in front of that variable. If you have it in double quote or in single quote. And the bottom part of the app is floating action button. And when the user press, then it call increment counter. And in the increment counter, it's gonna have the statement counter plus plus inside the set state, right? So that Flutter will refresh the screen. And for tooltip, it will display the value increment when we place the cursor over the floating action button. And the floating action button has the add sign in front of it because we have set the icon property here. So you can see that here we say that child of floating action button is icon add, right? And here you actually can also use other icon as well. It does not limit to icon add. Okay. So for this starter app, does anyone have any question? So it indicates that is the value of variable. Okay, good. So does anyone have other questions? Okay. So Flutter also offer a fast development cycle with stateful hot reload, which is the ability to reload the code of a live running app without restarting or losing app state. Then the developer can make a change to app source and then tell the IDE or command line to that uh, the user want to hot reload and see the change. Okay, so where is the hot reload button? We can see the hot reload button on both Visual Studio Code and also in Android. So this in Android. If you open on Android and say start debugging, then you can see the hot reload button here. I'm not sure that is does this has Android Studio? Yes. Okay. So okay. So yeah, if we open, for Visual Studio Code, it also has hot reload as well. Seeing that we need so for user with Android, you when you set the configuration, because here is there any device? Okay. Uh, Seeing that this does not set yet. Okay, let's look at the Visual Studio Code. So here you can see that in Visual Studio Code, you can also the hot reload here, right? And if you change the text and you just save it or click hot reload, then you can see that the text in the uh, virtual device or in the emulator or in your device also change as well. Okay. But when you want to release your app or want to have it in production, you should not have uh, run or build the app in the debug mode because debug mode actually train performance from useful developer features such as hot reload and state debugging. So here, when you can see that this button will appear only when we in the debug mode, right? And this also the state debugging here, the debugging tool. Okay. So, and actually the debugging tool is available in both Android Studio and in Visual Studio. So, if you are ready to deploy your app, then you should have it in profile mode. Okay. And when you have it in profile mode, then the performance will be better. Okay, so for this slide, we have learned that Flutter is a Google open source UI framework, right? That it allows us to develop only single code base, but can then deploy in both iOS and Android, and also web and desktop. And the framework provides high performance by compiling directly to native machine code and also have the feature like hot reload that allow the developer to see code change instantly without losing the application statement. And here we need to have a complete development environment when we test it with Flutter Doctor, right? In order to develop Flutter app, then you need to have Flutter SDK, Dark SDK, and the editor. And here, everything in Flutter is a widget, which we will learn in next slide. And uh, in order to manage the state below, we also need to understand about state management, which we will learn later in the course. And for the widget that need to have interaction with the user, then we need to create stateful widget. And the stateful widget will use a separate state object and set state to review the UI when data change. And you can see the sample of such data as the counter variable, right? That's why we place counter class in the set state. But for the static content, the content that does not change, we can just simply use stateless widget. And it's often that we may want to make a change and we don't want to take time to review the app, then we use hot reload. And when we develop, we should use debug mode because it has the feature like hot reload and also performance testing. But if we are done with development and want to deploy, we should use profile or release mode to ensure smooth animations and optimal speed. Okay. So for this slide, does anyone have any question? Okay, so now let's start the next slide. Flutter widget part 1. Okay, there are two kinds of widget like stateless widget and stateful widget. We're gonna start with stateless widget and we're gonna learn about basic widgets such as text, row, column, expanded container. And we also learn how to add access like images in the app and also learn about padding and margin so that we have enough space in our app and also learn about important material components. Okay, first, because in Flutter app we tend to have a very long code. So, and this code also have nested in many levels. So it's better that the code is formatted so that we can see which function inside which function. And I encourage you to change the setting of both Visual Studio Code or Android Studio Code, whatever you use, by going to setting and then you after you click setting, then there should be the setting menu this appear, right? Then you type search for format. Okay. And then after you type format, then you should see uh, the checkbox format on save and format on paste. So if we save like this, then whenever we save the code, the editor also format the code so that we can easily see the code later. Okay. We can easily understand the nested level of the code. Okay, Flutter widget are built using a modern framework that take inspiration from React. So in React, we also have components, right? But here in Flutter, we call it as widget. Okay, so widget describe what their view should look like given current configuration and state. And when our widget state change, the widget review its description which the framework with again the previous decision in order to determine the minimal change. Okay, you can perceive the widgets like the building blocks. Like many of us may play Lego before, right? So in Lego we have each block that has a specific job, and so here we get also like Lego blocks, and it can also contain all the blocks inside it, right? So these are like basic widgets, like text widget, button widget, image widget, container widget, and row widget. So here, in Flutter, parent widgets contain child widget inside them. So maybe like container contain text widget, right? Or row contain image widget. And but there are also some widgets that are called leaf widget. Leaf widgets are like text, don't have any children. And some widgets are layout widgets like row or column widgets that arrange with other widgets inside. And other widgets that are inside layout widget we call them as children of row and column. And the tree flow from root, which is material app, down to leaf. Okay, so if we look at this code, you can see that we have material app, right? And then material app has home property, which is scaffold. And then scaffold has two children, app bar and column. And app bar has text. So if you look at the tree, material app is the root node of the tree, right? And under material app is scaffold. And other scaffold there are two main children, app bar and column. And app bar has text with the title. Okay. And then for body, which is the column, it has three children, image, text, and button. So whenever we start to write an app, we usually start with hello world, right? Or hello like Python. Here in Flutter, if we just say run app constant text hello world, can do we do that? No. you can see that the error, right? And this error occurs because the Flutter app is missing a proper material widget structure. If we don't have material widget, then there will be error message, no directionality widget found, which is a common issue when you don't wrap your app widget tree with material app and scaffold widget. Okay, so what if we wrap text under center, have text as the child of the center? That still does not help. We still have the error message, no directionality widget found. Okay, we know that we have the problem with directionality. How about we specify the property text direction in the text widget? So here, when we specify the text direction property in the text widget, there's no error. But this is not the recommended way to build Flutter app. Why? Because it doesn't have the material design structure. And here, even though like we use center widget to make the text in the center and text direction LTR is left to right, then there's no error, but that's not recommended for material design structure. If we use material app, as you can see at the code line number 4, here we have material app and home scaffold, right? And under scaffold, we have center widget, which has text widget. Here, you can observe that in the text widget, we don't need to specify text direction property, right? Text inherit proper styling from material D, and the text widget inherit or have proper styling for material D because we use material app widget. So whenever we use material app widget, then the widget here will have the styling for material theme, and it also ready for adding more material design widget, and it easier to expand functionality, better handling of device specific feature. So what is limitation of not using material app widget or no material design? So then we don't have default theming. We don't have built-in widget like app bar. If we don't use virtual app, we cannot use app bar. Or we can also not use we also cannot use floating action button. And there also no screen safe area. Safe area means the area that can display the content without overlapping with like the status bar at the top. And no navigation support, no inherent theme properties. And each widget need to explicitly styling. And this will make us write a lot of codes. And we don't want to do that. So that's why we use material app, which follow with material design. So what is material design? It's a comprehensive design system created by Google. It provides guidelines for visual design, interaction design, layout principles, component behaviors, navigation patterns. You can look at more information on material design tree at this website. So it usually has recommended design for both web app and Flutter app, right? So here Android, web, and Flutter. So you can look at specific platform here. Okay, here this also the example of material design component that you can also click at this website. Okay, you can see that for the button, there's elevated button that you can see object in 3 dimensions, not only width and height, but you can also see that the button is less, right? So that there's the dimension of the not only x and y direction but also z direction, right? Either deep or raised up. And fill buttons here we can also have the fill button with the color fill in the button and outline button where we can specify the shape of the border of the button. And we can also have oriented button and icon buttons. Okay, and here for the input, we have like field, text field, outline text field, email address, and also password. And we can also have like checkbox, radio button, and slider here. And here at the navigation bar, you can see that uh, whenever we click, then there's a change of the color to indicate that this is the current state, right? The current tab. And for information that we want to display, a lot of time we may want to display in card, like elevated card, outline card, and field card, so that it can split different parts of the content. And another useful widget is list. We can have simple list or list with leading icons. So for leading icon, you can see that icons are in front of the text, right? But for theory widget, there will be the widget that's behind or after the text. Okay, and then here for material application, it serves as the root of a material design app, and it provides essential material design functionality like theme support. Here you can see that like text, the direction is inherit the style as left to right, right? And it also manages light dark modes. It can handle color scheme, and it also can manage navigation routing between screen, handle navigation animations. And with the Metro app widget that you have scaffold, you can also have app bar and also drawer menu that you can see some app that has drawer menu on the left, right? And it also handle localization like take direction left to right or right to left. Okay, so that's why we don't need to set such property by ourselves. And it also can handle translation between languages. And it also handles system UI integration like status bar, navigation bar, and also manage screen orientation. Okay, so this is the example of scaffold widget that on the top of this code, we actually have it under Metro app. And this scaffold widget has app bar, right? App bar has the title text sample code, so that's why we see sample code here. And then the body, we have the center widget that have the text. You place the button count, variable count tabs. And then we can actually specify the background color of this body as blue gray. Okay. And at the bottom, we have floating action button that on place, this is actually the arrow function, right? Whenever we see just left and right parentheses, it's mean function. And when we see arrow, it means this is the code inside that function. And set date here is also another function that has the code as call plus plus. And then tooltip is when we place the cursor mouse over the button, and then the constant icon here เข้าใจโค้ดบรรทัดที่38เลยค่ะเมื่อไหร่ก็ตามที่เราเห็นวงเล็บนั่นคือฟังก์ชันค่ะแล้วโค้ดสมัยใหม่เนี้ยมักจะใช้ arrow function ทั้งในเว็บแอปแล้วก็โมบายแอปอ่ะถ้าเราเห็น arrow function ก็คือหมายถึงว่าฟังก์ชันนี้เนี่ยมีโค้ดดังต่อไปนี้ใช่ไหมคะมีโค้ดที่มันอยู่ทางด้านขวามือของ arrow ซึ่งถ้าเราเห็นวงเล็บก็คือมันเป็นฟังก์ชันแต่เป็นฟังก์ชันที่มันไม่มีพารามิเตอร์อะไรนะคะแล้วก็โค้ดข้างในฟังก์ชันนี้ก็คือจะมี set state ซึ่ง set state ก็เป็นก็มีโค้ดข้างในเหมือนกันตรงนี้ก็คือใช้ arrow function เหมือนกันว่าข้างใน set state ก็มีโค้ดเขาplus นะคะโอเคfor the scaffold widget the first type is app bar right app bar display the toolbar widget reading title and action above the bottom and the bottom is usually used for a tab bar and here you can see that a lot of time we don't want to see this debug banner, right? Debug banner here. So we can set the property of material app as debug show check mode banner as false. The default value is true. So that's why whenever we develop the app, if we don't set debug show check mode banner is false, it always show because the default value is true. And for theme data, if we want to use the modern material design, then we specify use material tree as true. And here, if we want to specify the color of the app bar as we want, then we modify app bar theme here. We set color scheme. So here we set the color scheme as deep purple and set app bar theme with the background color as deep purple and has the text color with the foreground and color as color white. Okay. And here, for very long line, we gonna actually use this we will explain later. Okay. Okay. So this the scaffold without material app. We still need to have material app and then kind of material app is scaffold, right? And here I explain that at line number 3 we use arrow function to display that this is the function with the code, only single line of code, right? Whenever you see arrow function, please understand that is the code inside that function. Okay, so the Flutter widget architecture, we need to have widget tree, and for the widget tree, it will compose of many kinds of widget. Maybe structural widget like container, layout widgets like row and columns, or visual widgets like button. And then Flutter rendering engine will render the widget to make the widget appear on the screen. And now let's understand about life cycle of widgets. Start with stateless widget. So stateless widget is immutable. What does immutable mean? Immutable means it does not change. So stateless widget we want to use for all static content, the content that does not change. And first we need to have constructor, which to create the widget. And then here constructor is required. Build with the build protect handler also required because in the build method it will return the widget tree so that we can see the components on the screen. And for review behavior, when parent review with new configuration, the entire widget is replaced, no state is preserved between review. But if it's stateful widget, then life cycle is more complicated. We also need to start in constructor. And here in the constructor is actually then follow with create state, right? Create state is to create the mutable state object because instead of widget, we need to keep track the state of the object that is value can change. Like in the first app, that value is counter, right? And then we need to call init state, is call only once when state is created. And init state is to initialize state variables and set up controllers. And we need to always call super.init state. And there's also optional function like this chain dependency. After instance is called, then maybe some interrelated widget dependency change, then it's safe to call the dependency method like this chain dependency. And like stateless widget that it has new method. Stateful widget also need to have new method to return the widget tree. That is based on current state after we call init state. And then this update widget is optional. It's called when parent review with the same runtime but new configuration. And after we have used this widget, then we want to remove the state or cancel subscription, then we should call the post. If we call the post, then we're gonna prevent memory leak. If we don't call the post, then maybe that object still take some memory. Okay. Okay, so for the widget selection decision tree, how do we know whether we should build stateless widget or stateful widget? So the first question is, does content change during runtime? If the content does not change, then we should create stateless widget. And then for stateless widget, we need to look at whether we want to use the widget for layout, whether it has many components. If it has many components, then you probably need to have layout widget like row or column. But if it has only one single element, then maybe you can use only like container which can contain the single widget. But if the content change, then we're gonna create stateful widget for dynamic content and check whether the user input, if it has form, then we can consider whether we should use text field or irritated method for user actions. Okay, so yeah, when we develop Flutter app, we're gonna create a new widget. And this new widget called customized widget, right? Is the widget that we create by ourselves. That's why we call it as customized widget. But this widget, either stateless widget or stateful widget, depend on whether your widget manage any state or whether the content change. And the widget main job is to implement a build function which describe the widget or return the widget, right? Okay. And inside the widget that we create, we usually create, compose many widgets that are basic widgets. And the first basic widget that we use is text. It's a lot of text with a single style. And if you want to arrange widgets in horizontal direction, then we use row. If you want the widget to be at the center, then we have that widget as the child of center widget. If we want to arrange child widget in the vertical direction, then we use column widget. And if we want to have title or tab bar, then we specify app bar widget. And if we want to have space between elements, between widget, we can use sidebox. Sidebox is a box with specified size. We can specify uh, size in both horizontal direction and vertical direction. And the widget image is a widget that display an image. And scaffold widget, you will implement the basic material design, visual layout structure. And it also has drawers, snack bar, and bottom sheet. And container is a convenient widget that combine component printing, positioning, and sizing widget. Okay, let's see examples of this widget. So for the first part, we can see that here we have text, right? And the required pointer is the string that we want to display by using that text widget. And if we want to have text at the center, then you can specify we are using text align property. And overflow property will explain what Flutter framework should do if the text is very long, but we need to display in the limited space. So maybe we can specify that, okay, we're gonna use ellipsis, which is 3 dots, right, to display that the text is really longer than what we can display on the screen. And here, if we want to have the text in bold, then you can use style property. And the value of style property is text style widget. And here in the text style widget, you can specify font as bold. What if your text has different styles for different parts? Then in that case, we need to use text.list and text span. So you can observe that in this example, there are 3 parts of text, right? So the first text is hello. And hello here use default text style. But for other children, we also need to specify as text span as well. Like beautiful here, we use style as italic. And bold here, we use style as bold. And here we have long text widget. We can actually specify how many lines we want to display that long text widget by using max lines. In this example, max line is 2, right? So that's why we can see text only in 2 lines. But what happened for other characters that we don't display on the screen? Here we specify that in this case of overflow, we're gonna use text overflow dot ellipsis. And text overflow dot ellipsis is dot dot dot. So that's why we see dot 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 here. Okay. And soft wrap means if the text is too long to display in a single line, do we want that text break at the line ending? The default value is false, so we want to wrap the text. So we set soft wrap as true. So that's why we can see the line is break. Okay. If we don't set this, then text will run infinitely, horizontally. And we can also like what if we want to have underline? We can use decoration property. And decoration property accept the like value as text decoration dot underline. Okay, the center widget we may often use because it's a convenient widget that center is child with itself and it aligns the child in the middle of the available space both vertically and horizontally. And by default, widget in Flutter tend to position themselves at the top left corner. And for simplicity, we don't want to compute screen dimensions. So we just simply use center widget. And center also is most common way to draw attention, right? We have it at the center. So here in this app, if we don't use center widget, what happens? You can see that the text appears on the top left corner, right? But if you use center widget, and the child of center widget is the text widget that we don't to display the message. Now you can see that hello Flutter is at the middle, both horizontally and vertically. What if we want to display more than one widget? Then we need to have the layout widget, right? Column widget. Column widget will display children in the vertical array top to bottom. When we use column widget, like we want to build form that has inclusive A, inclusive B, when we want to create new fields, or we want to stack a heading above a paragraph. And there also the concept of main axis and cross axis. For main axis is in the vertical direction, control up down positioning. Cross axis control left right positioning. For the low widget, is the widget that display is children in a horizontal array. It flow from left to right. We often use low widget when we want to implement navigation bar, where we have icon A next to icon B, or when we have labels with like heart icon next to number 24. And the main axis is in main axis actually in the horizontal, but the arrow here is not correct, right? Horizontal need to be this way. The text is correct, but the arrow is not correct. So main axis control left to right positioning for the widget, and cross axis control down positioning. Okay, let's see the pictures that will help us to understand. So main axis is the primary direction in which children are laid out. For row, main axis is horizontal, left to right. For column, main axis is vertical, top to bottom. But there also cross axis, which is the perpendicular direction to the main axis. Perpendicular means like across, right? So that's why its name is cross axis. So for row, cross axis is vertical direction, and for column, cross axis is horizontal direction. Okay, why do we care? Because then we can set the options of main axis alignment and cross axis alignment. If we want to have the children at the start for the column main axis is top to bottom, right? So yeah, if you want children at the top, then we need to have the option as main axis alignment dot start. If we want it to display at the bottom, then we need to set main axis alignment dot end. But often we want to have it at the center, then we're gonna set main axis alignment as center. Okay. And sometimes we also want to control space between children. If we say main axis alignment of space between, then there is no space before the first child and after the first child. But if we set main axis alignment space allowed, then there will be space before the first child as half of the space between children. If you want to have the space equally for the first child and between children, then we use space evenly. And for cross axis alignment, it's just different direction. Okay, the cross like for column, cross axis is horizontal direction. Start from the left, right, and at the right. center at the middle. Okay, this is the code that will help you understand more about setting the main axis alignment. So in the column, you can set main axis alignment as main axis alignment of space allow. So space allow, you will have space before the first widget as half of the space between children, right? So that's why we can see that the space here is about half of the space between the first row and the second row here. And then at the row, so this column, but this column has three rows. For the first row, it has two children, right? It actually has three children. Icon, sidebox between icon and text. And here we have main axis alignment as star. So that's why you see these children on the left because we set main axis alignment as start. But for cross axis alignment, you can see that the icon is at the bottom, right? Because we set cross axis alignment at A. And for the second row, here we say space between. So for space between, you don't see any space before the first child and after the last child. And for the last row, we actually set center for both main axis alignment and cross axis alignment. So here you can see that these these four children icon, sidebox, stick, and tick are at the center, right? We all accept that it's at the center horizontally, but vertically, is it at the center? If it's at the center, we should have it at here, right? But now it's at the bottom part. Why is that? เข้าใจคำถามอาจารย์ไหมคะอ่าคอลัมน์นี้มันมี3แถวใช่ไหมอ่าแล้วก็เนี่ยพอเราบอกว่า space allow main axis alignment เป็น space allow เราก็จะเห็นว่า space ก่อน first row เนี่ยมันจะครึ่งหนึ่งระหว่าง space อ่า row ที่1กับ row ที่2ใช่ไหมคะอ่ะแล้วก็เรามาดู row แรก row แรกเนี่ยมี3 children ก็คือไอคอน sidebox แล้วก็ text ซึ่งเราเซต main axis alignment ของโรแรกเป็น star มันก็เลยเริ่มทางด้านซ้ายมือเลยค่ะ เพราะว่า main axis alignment ของโรมันไปในแนวนอน แต่ว่า cross axis alignment เนี่ยมันเป็นแนวตั้ง เราจะเห็นว่าทำไม star มันอยู่ข้างล่างของ center เพราะว่าเราไปเซตว่าเป็น cross axis alignment .a ใช่ไหมคะอ่ะโอเค ทีนี้เรามาดูโรที่2โรที่2เนี่ยเราไปเซต main axis alignment space between ซึ่ง space between ก็คือมันจะมี space เฉพาะ between children ไม่มี space ก่อน first child กับ last child เราก็เลยเห็น first child กับ last child เนี่ยเกือบจะติดขอบเลยไม่มี space นะคะเรามาดูคอลัมน์สุดท้ายคอลัมน์สุดท้ายเนี่ยมันมี four children ก็คือมีไอคอน sidebox แล้วก็มี text 2 อันซึ่งเราเซต main axis alignment ว่าเป็น center แต่ว่าตรงนี้ถ้าเราดูเนี่ยมัน center ในแนวนอนใช่ไหมคะแต่มันไม่ center ในแนวตั้งใช่ไหมทำไมมันถึงอยู่ตรงนี้ล่ะนักศึกษาสงสัยไหมว่าก็เราเซต main axis alignment center ทำไมมันไม่อยู่ตรงตำแหน่งนี้ตำแหน่ง center text ตรงนี้ทำไมมันไปอยู่ข้างล่างมีใครอธิบายได้ไหมเพราะว่ามันเป็นเซนเตอร์ของสเปซที่มันมีอยู่ไงคะสเปซที่มันมีอยู่คือตรงนี้ไงใช่ไหมอ่ามันสเปซของมันไม่ใช่ทั้งหมดใช่ไหมคะอืมก็คือเวลาเราเซตเซนเตอร์คือเป็นสเปซเป็นเซนเตอร์ของพื้นที่มันเองอย่าลืมว่าอันนี้มันมีสาม children ใช่ไหมแล้วก็พื้นที่ข้างล่างจริงๆแล้วมันก็มีพื้นที่แค่นี้แหละใช่ไหมคะมันไม่ได้มีพื้นที่ทั้งหมดพอเข้าใจเนาะอ่า Okay, so in that we have three types of comments. The first is single line comment where we have slash slash. The second type is slash star star slash. And the last type is for documentation. We have 3 slash. So usually we gonna use 3 slash above class, method, and widgets so that when we use IDE, then the documentation, the comment here will display when we place the cursor over the widget name. Okay. Okay, so now let's do exercise 1. So in this exercise, in your Flutter project labs directory, you're gonna create Flutter project called Money Widget exercise. And Money is actually your first name. Okay, so replace it with your first name. And you're gonna create dark file called main student profile. And this is the stateless widget. And this stateless widget called student profile. And it actually has only 2 widgets. So this you should separate them as 2 widgets with your first name, last name, and your ID. Okay. And then include app bar with student profile. And set the macro C with your favorite color. And also set your app bar color. Okay. And remove the debug banner. So here you can see that there's no debug banner, right? And use constant constructor whenever possible. And write comment about widget and your name and the AI documentation. Like if you use AI, you need to tell the AI tool that you use, the prompt that you use, and the prompt answer. And some prompt answer is not correct, right? So, for example, you may like use this code. You should think by yourself first. Don't ask AI before you write the code. You can write the code and ask for like something that like related to syntax, right? Or check whether you done it correctly. So yeah, it said that we can not use from C. This is not correct. Like if it's not correct, then we say that here at line 13, we evaluate whether the answer is correct or not. And if it's not correct, then we say that we just ignore it. But some is also good suggestions. Like it observed that the given code use a single column in a row. It's not necessary. You can just use center widget. Okay. And after you write 3 slash here, then you need to have the keyword library semicolon as well. Okay. And observe that here you need to create student profile, not my app, right? And here you should have your name and ID in variable so that later when we want to make a change, we can change it easily, right? Don't hard code with your name value and your ID value. How to have the habit of having the value in variable อันนี้ก็คือฝึกการเขียนโค้ดที่ดีด้วยนะคะ การเขียนโค้ดที่ดีเราจะไม่ไปฮาร์ดโค้ดชื่อเราไอดีเราใช่ไหมซึ่งการที่เราไปฮาร์ดโค้ดชื่อเราแล้วไอดีเรามีปัญหา2 อย่างอย่างแรกคือมันทำให้คนอื่นที่มาอ่านโค้ดเราก็ไม่รู้ว่าอันนี้คืออะไรใช่ไหมคะอันนี้เป็นค่าอะไร อันที่2สมมติเกิดเราเปลี่ยนนามสกุลนี้ค่ะเราก็ต้องไปเปลี่ยนทุกที่ใช่ไหมซึ่งมันก็อาจจะเปลี่ยนไม่ครบมันก็ยากในการเมนเทนโค้ดเพราะฉะนั้นพยายามให้ value ต่างๆมันอยู่ในตัวแปรนะคะเวลาเราเกิดค่ามันเปลี่ยนเราก็แก้แค่ทีเดียวโอเคเนาะนี่ก็จะเป็น exercise ที่อยากให้นักศึกษาทำในวันนี้นะคะซึ่งมันจะเป็นข้อ1ใน lab 2ซึ่งถ้าใครทำเสร็จภายในคาบก็จะได้ extra credit นะคะแต่ว่าก็อยากจะให้ใช้เวลาลองทำดูนะคะ เราก็สร้างโปรเจกต์ขึ้นมาใหม่ใช่ค่ะก็คือสร้างโปรเจกต์ขึ้นมาใหม่เพราะว่าเวลาเรามาดูโค้ดเราทีหลังเราไม่ควรจะเอาทุกอย่างไว้ในโปรเจกต์เดียวกันเราควรจะแยกโฟลเดอร์แยกโปรเจกต์ไปคลิกที่ New Flutter Project อ่ะเหมือนกับตอนที่เราสร้าง First App ใช่ไหมค่ะได้ค่ะโปรเจกต์มันต้องสร้างเหมือนแบบแล้วก็แบบเอาแล้วก็ช่องมันไม่เป็นไรผมที่ไม่คิดเลยเราก็ต้องเอาเป็นแอปให้ไปอยู่ในที่เราพอมันให้เราแหละมันก็เป็นที่เรามีตัวช่องก็มีเกิดการสร้างเป็นสร้างสิ่งที่ไม่กัน อย่างแรกก็นั่นแหละในในโอเพนโซเรด้วยแน่นอนฟังสิ่งที่ผมโอเพนได้ฟังโอเพนเรื่องนี้ผมไม่เพราะแต่ว่าในตัวแข็งของไม่ใช่แต่ก็แต่ที่มันมีอยู่แล้วเรื่องอะไรสิ่งที่เราชอบเรื่องอะไรอีกครับเราแบบไปซักเจ้าเป็นสีขาวมันไม่เหมือนกับซักเจ้าในเขาเรื่องพอในเหตุการณ์ผมคิดว่าใจเขาไม่ใช่คือที่ว่าซักเจ้าเนี่ยใช่พูดที่เราไปเรียนเรื่องไปทำไมเป็นได้แบบพูดเรื่องชอบมีอะไรที่ไม่ได้เนี่ยโอเคที่ที่คุณสร้างที่มองเห็นแล้วมันก็เกิดจากที่เป็นสุดท้ายที่เราพัฒนาเราก็ใช้ได้แล้วเป็นคนที่เราแต่เราเพิ่งก่อนเป็นคนที่เราเก่งในคนที่เราที่เราเจอแล้วก็ชอบนี่อะไรลิ้นเหรอลิ้นอะไรลิ้นอะไรก็เลยแล้วก็หมดเป็นรูปที่เราก็เอลไอบีเซอร์ผมก็ไม่มีทางเลือกว่ามีอะไรเงี้ยแล้วผมเราว่านี่ผมเป็นคนเลยครับแต่ไม่ใช่คนที่ดีแล้วก็เสร็จอันนี้ผมจะเรียกว่าอะไรตัวไฟแอปไปแล้วก็ไอดีครับใช่ไหมแต่ละปีวันไม่มีวันไม่ได้สิ่งที่เรียกว่าแอปอันนี้สิ่งที่ไฟแอปออกไปแล้วเองสติลเอาเด็ดเพราะว่าก็ตัวเรื่องมันใช่ที่เหมือนกับแต่เรื่องเออเรื่องก็ได้แล้วก็ตั้งเซฟเราก็จะย้ายไปที่แอนที่เราก็แสดงคนชอบแบบนั้น